Hello, everyone. So we're talking today about know thyself. Why such a video? Well, the opposite of fear of missing out and a lot of other stuff that I've been talking about here is to be in your sexual power, thus to know yourself first and foremost. Why is it important to know thyself sexually? Well, let me just say this. When you know who you are, you're centered, essentially. And I was speaking about this yesterday also when I mentioned the fear of missing out and all the stuff that it entails. And you're not phased out when somebody talks about experiences that they've had that they are very different from yours. Or you're not phased out when somebody has more experience than you have. Or when somebody says something that maybe they don't like so much about you sexually, or they just don't click with it so much, again, you're not phased out because you know yourself, and that gives automatically a great deal of inner peace and inner calm and reassuredness. And if there's anything that you need in order to grow, to be bigger, better, more at peace, more harmonious, more anything expansive, receptive, that is to know yourself. So this is an extremely important step, know thyself. Okay, so how do I, from a coaching perspective, what do I mean by know thyself? I'm looking at 4 aspects. First of all, it's the conceptual. So yes, we're gonna go with the intellectual first. So the beliefs, the definitions, the mindset, the core stuff that, the brain isn't just the biggest sex organ in the body, it's also the biggest power organ in the body. And it is what gives us huge and extremely, impressive amounts of power. I'll express it like that, but I don't think my vocabulary actually covers the immensity of power that we get through just our brains and how we think, how we envision, how we visualize, and then how we give life to all the stuff that we have in here, because that's the power of it. This is where it starts from. Power starts from your head. That's how I see it. It doesn't stop there, and if it's only here, chances are you are only in your fantasy or imagination without execution. You tell beautiful stories, but you never or rarely get to live them. So that isn't, so it starts here, but it's not limited to that. Okay, we're not just in this little round, squared, oval, heart shape, whatever shape your face has. So we're not just here, we're in more of us. Okay, what does it mean to know yourself sexually when it comes to the concept, the intellectual stuff? If you want to go with the science, also a bit about your brain, how it's wired, a bit about the unconscious and subconscious. Also, if you're into spirituality, a bit about the superconscious, okay? Something that exceeds your consciousness, but you tap into that, okay? There are multiple ways to do that. Number one, you do any kind of conscious work. So you dig in through your conscious brain, and that can be through conversations, through writing, through listening to various things and see what you resonate and what you don't resonate with. Usually the stuff that you don't understand, whether you read them, listen to them in a conversation, watch them in a documentary or movie or video like this one, if you don't understand it, if it doesn't make sense to you, it means that it's not for you. It doesn't mean that it's completely without sense, it's just that it's not on your wavelength. So that's an important thing, because if, let's say, you connect with various people sexually and they tell you various things, and those things seem like crap, stupid, idiotic, imbecile, pointless, senseless, etc., okay, don't freak out. It simply means that it's not for you. And it is extremely important to not judge. So to not jump, intellectually speaking, to not jump into authoritarian position and say that, okay, if I don't understand it, then that means it's crap and you're inferior to me and whatever. You can do that subtly, or you can do that extremely consciously. I would strongly advise you to still work a bit on your intellect, how it's wired, and how your intellect relates to other people's intellect, especially sexually. If one thing is true, then in intimacy, somebody who's extremely gifted, then they can at least bridge to somebody else that is, very different from them. Okay. How else you can do it? Well, you can start to work on yourself. And I think this is where therapy helps you go with your subconscious. When it comes to the unconscious, then I think, deep therapy or hypnotherapy, because I was mentioning in the brainstorming video about that. I think guided meditations also, or guided focusing, because actually that's what it is. Meditation, it doesn't have a purpose. When you're working with an audio or something, somebody guides you with a specific path, then it's guided focusing, a bit too. So there is a lot of material out there when it comes to guided focusing on how to be a better lover, erotic affirmations. I have 2 material on my channel. You can look on the playlist and you'll see their guided focusing playlist. And there's a lot of stuff coming out nowadays. In 2018, when I started building these, there weren't that many, but now there are a lot. And probably, your own intuitive inner contemplations, also a way that you can start working with yourself. And if intuitive means that it doesn't necessarily have a strategy or a structure or a precise, rigid, highly defined method, it means that whenever something happens, or whenever you want to go deeper with something, you want to manifest something or attract something into your life, or dive deeper into a relationship, then you just do inner contemplation and you sit with yourself until you get an answer to whatever question, challenge, curiosity, objective you have. It really works. I can't explain how it works. It's a lot like advertising. You do some things and then you put them out there and then they give you results. It's the same with your mind. You sit with yourself, you give it a question or a challenge or something. And if you wait long enough for your mind, it will give you an answer. I promise you, even if it takes months, it will give you an answer. So whatever challenges you have in intimacy, that's how you work, on the intellectual aspect. Super conscious, the only answer I'd have here is true, in the true sense, meditation. So you don't have a purpose. You don't seek for something in particular. You just sit in quiet and peace and solitude, and you open your antennas and you can pick up various things, whatever, because it's still not pointless. It's just that you're not putting an objective, but whatever your entire mind is able to translate and process, it will pick up from the outside. That's how I translated, up to this point, super consciousness. Maybe some other, give me 10 more years and I'll translate it differently. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to look at is emotionally speaking. Why? Because I've said it in so many videos, and I also have a TED Talk in English where I speak about the biggest aphrodisiac, which is emotion. Okay, so how does that translate into your knowing yourself sexually? Well, understanding your palette of emotions that spark sexual impulse, instinct, arousal in you. And that one isn't easy. I wished I had a method for that. I don't necessarily believe in structures. I believe more in awareness and really tapping into your heart, and that is a skill to actually learn. And you can learn it even if you don't follow sexual growth or sexual expansion. Knowing yourself emotionally is important for all the decisions that we make, or 99.999 period, or in brackets, so that means it repeats itself to the infinite, of decisions we make emotionally. So emotional intelligence directed towards us, or emotional self-knowledge, is extremely important, because you want to understand how you're deciding and what you're doing and how you're maybe helping yourself grow, or sometimes doing the opposite. It's the same in intimacy, with just a little twist here. If you're not careful, there are a lot of programs out there that kind of play you, especially in dating. You know, a lot of stuff with physical attraction is wired to the reverse psychology, meaning, and it plays you on an emotional field, obviously. Meaning creating the scarcity or extremely high challenge, or somebody that just short circuits your entire interaction. So from a peaceful thing, they just say something and wham, it took you completely into a different emotional spectrum, and it usually jolts you or scares you or intimidates you. And that is done in many cases in order to control. I've seen a few people doing that. One was actually a guy from Romania. I never met him in person, but I interacted with him in writing. And this guy is teaching seduction. And when I saw that in just a few hours from one peaceful, constructive interaction, he just shifted into a manipulated in a pretty ugly way, in a totally different direction, I was like, wow, that's not cool. Yeah, depends on your emotional intelligence and how skilled you are. It does make sense even in the first stages, because in dating, some people can really pull these really nasty things on you, and it's up to you. It depends on your emotional palette, as I said in the beginning. Some people might be okay with having their rug pulled from under their feet. Some aren't. It depends on their emotional build, and what emotions actually set them up for attraction and for, you know, wanting to see more, or what emotions make them take distance, like permanently. Sometimes, like, you've had one of that interactions and it's enough. So it's important to know yourself, emotionally speaking, because emotion is the biggest aphrodisiac. And if you're not careful, you can be played with emotions a great deal. A lot of emotional conditioning. So you're used to having a certain interaction, a certain reaction, a certain emotional comforting in a way from another person. And when for whatever reason that is not available anymore, and if the reason is one of manipulation, then it actually makes sense that you become aware. Because sometimes, you know, people aren't emotionally available as they used to for very justified reasons. And it's super important for you to know yourself, what you need to potentially give yourself. And here again, up to now, meditation or focusing or body awareness can actually, surprisingly, foster emotional stability within yourself, or emotional feeding yourself, recharging yourself, rewiring yourself emotionally. That one, if it doesn't, again, like I said with the first one, the intellectual part, if it doesn't sound as anything translatable to you, don't worry about it. You might not be ready for it. If it does resonate, then you must have done a certain amount of meditation until you've learned the beauty of emotions that you actually feel at the end of a 20-minute or 30-minute practice with meditation. That's it. Another gift here with emotional expansion is that with emotion being the biggest aphrodisiac, a lot of people are able to dive deeper and dive or understand erotically speaking. So that means, you know, the internal universe, emotions, fantasies, aspirations, all the internal universe related to sexuality. It's called the erotic. So you can not just only dive deeper when you're engaging intimately or sexually or just erotically. So you don't do anything physically, but you're still feeling arousal and ignition. And you can also understand more people, so you can relate with more people. Doesn't mean that you jump all those people. It means that you understand their world, their erotic world. If for whatever reason you open up discussions, this is something that is being done a lot in women's groups. And no, it doesn't mean that women are gay or that they are seeking partners. It just means that they're talking about their erotic universe and challenge all sorts of emotions, beautiful ones, not necessarily beautiful, ones that are extremely arousing or how do I say this, expansive to them, and some that just get them to constrict. But people can relate better when they do a lot of emotional work, because they don't necessarily take the charge or take the competition, which is a really nasty way to go about emotional or erotic growth. But anyway, so they are able to relate and understand others, and hopefully also help them, yeah, expand or get over some hurdles that they have in their intimate life, without this meaning that they are interacting with them sexually. So that's a big one, if you ask me. Okay, now the third level in terms of knowing yourself sexually or erotically, it's the body way, bodily approach, somatic way, physical. And that means a lot of things. First of all, the senses and sensuality. So how you're engaging with your senses, whether it's hearing or sight or taste or feel or smell, or there are other senses out there, meaning how you feel yourself from within, the sense of balance, the sense of beauty, which it has, like, sometimes even the most unusually or imbalanced from the physical senses things, they can still have beauty in them through the emotions that they convey. That means that you have a sense of appreciation, a sense of beauty there that will help you translate. So sensuality means that you make it, either you engage or you give yourself senses speaking, or senses wise, sensually, all the things that bring you pleasure, or to a more and let's say a next stage, you can translate beauty, pleasure, life, eroticism, vitality in things that maybe might not, to the average eye, let's say, or the untrained eye, they don't speak much. So that can be, this is usually with people, the first way that I can translate this, people who appreciate art. And yes, there are different, so de gustibus, you don't speak of people, you don't criticize or judge people's tastes. But this is how people actually are able to, there's something more. It's not just the sight, but it's also the meaning of that, the message, the emotion that is awakened in them. And that goes to sensuality still. Yes. And how you know, because in your own body, something is sparked, stirred up, something comes to life, and everybody can translate that differently. In my case, a lot of the times I translated with an expansion right here in my chest. Or other times it's joy, and it's joy, it's not just in my chest, it goes up to my eyes. So sometimes I cry, or it goes up to my throat and I can't contain, it's not a laughter as in it was super funny, but it's joy that I can't contain with my voice. So I usually sigh, or I speak louder when I'm extremely, I don't know, ignited by something. And yeah, usually it's with music, it's with art, it's with food, it's with the air, the fresh mountain air that I feel sometimes. That's amazing. Yeah, so many things. Okay, that's how I translate it. But there are different people would translate it differently. Maybe they see somebody dance. Maybe they see a painting or a sculpture, or an entire movie, or what is this? a theater play, or maybe they engage, so they start to move, or they engage with a play, with a movie, they're in it, something's happening, they're in the midst of it, and they feel like that beauty and that aliveness, that sensuality and that erotic energy is living through them, like through every pore of their skin. This is what usually happens with dancers, a lot of dancers, and also with athletes, even though it doesn't necessarily look like art, but it's still, they come alive. They just come alive, and that's the erotic power, basically. Okay, another way in which you know yourself sexually when it comes to the body, or the somatic way, is actually through connecting physically, sexually speaking, with somebody. So that is through direct touch, whispering, or making sounds in somebody's ear, or hearing them somehow, smelling somebody, feeling somebody, like not just with your hands, but body next to body, basically. And this can be done in many ways. It's not just through having sex with somebody. You can also go for sexual growth in the way that I speak a lot about it here. So you explore with your body in terms of arousal and pleasure, but you explore, meaning you go somewhere where you're not hooking up with people, you're just understanding yourself sexually. And that could be through what? Massage, dance also, body to body dance, partner dance, ecstatic dance. I'm not even going to talk about that one. Most of you might have heard of it already. What else? Practices. A lot of the practices that I do, although many people, I feel that that's one area that is, a lot of room for growth for a lot of people. Okay, so you play with yourself, with your body, and you explore and you understand yourself sexually in so many other ways. And that's what sexual practices have to offer. And I think that, just as doing workouts for athletes or doing rehearsals for dancers, that's what it is in terms of sexual practices. But you have to, your body needs to have the time to mature itself into those and understand the immense power. And then obviously everything that you do in your practice, you can definitely do with your partner, and it's just whole new ball game, basically. And here, the biggest benefit that knowing yourself actually has to offer is that you are able to understand not just yourself, but then you can sometimes pick up what your partner needs. Especially you can start to pick up and you can start to speak sexually to people who are different from you. And again, that's the gift, the unknown gift of sexual practices. When you start to put yourself, in a long term through those practices, the gift is that when you meet somebody who is wired differently, but not necessarily so differently from you that, your body's not going to make anything of it. So somebody's wired differently, but you can still bring yourself to where they are. So you can speak sexually, you can start to feel pleasure the way they do. An extreme here would be, and I've seen this, I've heard of this in my sessions, I've also seen it in my life, somebody who's very soft, who meets somebody who needs a lot of impact, so high impact sex. It's not just high intensity or impact workouts, it's also high impact sex. Somebody who's into soft impact and slow speeds and a lot on the softer side. Yeah, you can, if you start to work with your body, you can speed things up, you can start to carry a bit more intensity. But if somebody's to the opposite extreme from you, then it might still be shocking for your body. Okay, I've heard of this in my sessions, and I've also seen it on myself. And no matter how much work you do, if your body's wired in a certain way, you still can't go to the opposite extreme, not without traumatizing your body. So numbing it to the point where it actually needs a lot, but a lot of impact in order to feel something. if you're on the sensitive side. And vice versa, if you're somebody who needs a lot of high impact, if somebody is extremely soft, so they are sensitive, you just touch them like this and they already feel a lot, then you're not going to feel much with those people. So that's why I say that extremes, but getting, a tone or a shade farther away from you, or 2 shades, 3 shades of impact farther away from you, definitely possible. The entire spectrum, no, still. So it does make sense to know yourself sexually through the body, to understand, okay, up to where I can take my body without traumatizing it. And the opposite also, up to where can I slow down and not get bored with it. Completely valid from either extreme to look at things, okay, up to where can I go and I can still feel pleasure and arousal. Okay, the gift of knowing yourself sexually through your body. Okay, and the 4th level that I will speak of here is mixing them, all of them all together. So mixing your mind, your definitions, your fantasies, your dreams, your emotions, and then your physicality. Okay, mixing them and playing with them. I think in music, artists call that jamming. So when extremely gifted and talented artists meet, that's Ivan, he's sleeping here with me. So when extremely gifted artists meet, they do a jam session. Basically, everybody shows or uses their skill, and they don't have something predefined or anything established. It's just in the spur of the moment, something comes out. Those are the jam sessions. Yeah, that's advanced stuff, because they know basically their craft, let me put it that way. So they drum excellently, they play the guitar excellently, they sing excellently, they play the ukulele excellently, they play the what is the Scottish instrument? Oh God, I know it in Romanian we call it chimpoi. I have no idea right now what it's called in English. Oh my God. So anyway, erotically speaking, mixing all of these and doing an erotic jam session with somebody, that's the kind of that, like knowing yourself to the point where you can actually do that and learn new things about yourself. So erotic or sexual jam sessions, phew, amazing. Those aren't very often, because a lot of people rush into sex first and foremost, and you can't do a jam session, sexually speaking, if you rush into it. You just can't. And another thing, so many people have these predefined pathways, and they don't really venture out of them. And that's where a lot of the sexual practices come so in handy, because you learn to follow your genius. Yes, your genius means that you go and explore more, and you find new things out there. You find ways to bring them into your body, live them out, and share them with others, and not just spark a little bit of excitement or arousal. You have entire fireworks. All right, so I had to stop. I had a knock on the door, and my wolf was howling all over the house. So yeah. Okay, so in this next part, what I want to read you are some answers that I got on a Facebook group. It's called Sacred Sexuality Rising. And I've been on this group since 2018. I didn't initiate it, somebody else did. And every now and then I ask a question there. And I got a few answers about sexual growth and exploration. So how do people do that? And I just want to read to you. Essentially, this is how people know themselves sexually. So here are, I have 6 answers. I'm just going to read you. Okay, my bad, or my apologies, I'm going to look down. So answer number 1, now that I have awakened primal energy, any partner I court needs to have energetic awareness. Any partner I court knows that I can move energy, that I am a cultivator of sex energy. Furthermore, being relatively fresh out of a long-term monogamous relationship, And in light of the new magic energy that is inside me, I am actively seeking out tantrikas who are open or who are in open or poly relationships with whom I can move energy. I know that love is half the picture and love is there, but I am in the exploratory phase. I can see the warm glow of love on the horizon. This came from a man, and I thought this was beautiful. Okay. Another answer that I got, okay, this one is going to be funny. I think the woman will recognize herself. Here it goes. Oh, wow, I didn't know you were in this group. Let me just say, I love your channel content. It really makes me question, challenge myself. Thank you so much. You have been a factor in my sexual awakening. So somebody explores and knows herself through this channel. Awesome. Number 3. To me, it is about exploring life force energy. Erotic flow permeates everything if we are willing to allow it to be. Last 4 years have been a careful monogamous exploration through Somatica Institute, Light Dark Institute, and now separately through a series of virtual classes and considering Tantra later in person. Okay, somebody's really into it. Number 4, I am single. I was seeing someone last year, which ended early last summer. I think I have to become unsingle or find a lover, since I've been pretty much celibate, to pursue sexual growth and exploration. I feel there is only so much I can do on my own. I am a touchy-feely person who likes massage as well as sex. Now, I asked this person, all right, and when you are with someone, how do you see your growth or your knowing yourself? So your exploration. I didn't yet get an answer, but I think that's a very good question. Just because we are with somebody doesn't necessarily always mean that we are exploring or growing. Because, yeah, a lot of people can just stick to a routine. So I was curious, when you are with somebody, how does exploration, growth, knowing yourself looks like? I'm gonna wait for that answer, but that's one thing to consider. Okay, number 5. I got a philosophical one. So somebody answered, dying into, waking up, dying anew. When I said, wow, that's a philosophical answer, I love it, this guy replied, oh, no. Dying into is embodied. Waking up again is embodied. And the choice to merge anew is also embodied. Perhaps in and through the body would be more precise. Okay, so that one's a bit cryptic, but I'll leave it because, it might make some sense to other people out there. I didn't exactly know what he meant, but through a group, this would have called for a rich discussion, at least from an intellectual perspective, for me to grasp what this man had in mind. And this is from my Instagram account, somebody who's also here on the YouTube channel. And this man answered, I've had pelvic floor therapy for tight pelvic floor and have spent a lot of time getting in touch with my emotions, letting go of shame, and learning to allow myself to enjoy pleasure. What you teach really resonates with me. I'm working on being more present in my body, let go of feelings of shame, be more open sexually and emotionally, and have more intimate relationships, sexual and otherwise. And I have been working on my own already. That's how I found you in the first place. How beautiful is that? So these are just some pieces of information, answers, perspectives from people that I got from Facebook and Instagram. And I hope that these serve you in any way. And let me know how you feel, how you perceive that knowing yourself sexually is for you. And if and ever this will make sense to you, then I have sessions, individual sessions. You get an intake form from me. There are a lot of questions there. I cover pretty much all the aspects of sexuality and erotic. And usually that's just the first way in which people know themselves a lot, because there are some questions there that nobody asked themselves. That's one. The other one, the online programs that I have, they are with practices. You know what I was talking about, the jam sessions, the erotic or sexual jam sessions? Well, that is your best preparation for erotic jam sessions. Yes. Imagine all the accessories and all the practices that you can bring to your lovemaking with somebody who's hopefully also exploring and open to doing that. So check those out. All of those are presented on my site. And otherwise, I'd really love to know, so leave me a comment, what you think of knowing yourself sexually. How do you go about it? Okay, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.